Episode 22, and we've got a bit of a special guest for this one. We've got from Zenith Sports, Malcolm Banks. We've known Malcolm for a couple of years now because he's a judo coach at our jiu-jitsu club. But on top of that, with Zenith Sports, he does a lot of tackling training for AFL clubs. He's done TAC, he's done the women's AFL, a lot of schools around the place, soccer, rugby as well. And professional wrestling.
Bit of wrestling.
So we sat down with Mal and had a chat, and it went on for a little bit. We went on a bit over 3 hours.
I was going to say, I wish we started earlier. We should have started during the day or something, because I was ready to keep on going. Do a double.
It was great. So we're going to split this up into two. But we're trying to do a few of these, I don't want to call them interviews. They're conversations, aren't they?
Yeah.
I
call them character profiles, something like that.
Going balls deep.
Yeah, we're calling it Balls Deep with Malcolm Banks.
So anybody that we have for these interviews, we've decided that we're going to welcome them in with the best buffalo chicken wings in Australia.
Yep.
So while we were feeding Mal up on his buffalo chicken wings, we actually had the microphones on. So here's what he said about them. That looks amazing. Can I come again?
Absolutely. Roll up.
All right, so I only say half the story then. So there you go. So when we say they are the best in Australia, you know we're not talking shit.
Yeah.
So with Mal, we've, like I said, we decided to split it up into two. This first one is about his judo background and rising through the ranks and heavy competing and even having to run at the Olympics and being on the Olympics training squad.
Yep.
So here we go with part one of our Going Balls Deep with Malcolm Banks.
Enjoy.
All right, we'll start real simple then, man. Mal, judo. How'd you start?
My mum actually did judo as a young lady.
Yep.
And basically my introduction to it was her throwing me into bed when I was a little kid, pushing me around, doing ogoshi and stuff like that to make me go to bed and things like that.
Okay, we're going to have to stop you every time you say Japanese.
Absolutely.
Just so we can explain. No, I want you to say the Japanese.
Okay,
and then...
Yep, so ogoshi, which is major hip throw. So my mum used to throw me into bed and stuff like that. That being said, she had a car accident which damaged her back. So that was before having me. So she'd sort of finished up and she had a love for it. She was actually coached by my coach, which is Arthur Moorehead. And from there, it was more to the point where it was just sort of in the home, young, just learned a little bit. I was more enamoured with soccer. I played soccer at school, was a soccer goalie, and then from there progressed into...
Sorry, I thought you said you played.
So, I'm going to give you that. So with that, the school I went to, I was playing against, I believe it was Campbell or Grammar. I went to school at Yarra Valley.
Those bastards.
Well, what am I talking to Campbell or Grammar?
We got no idea.
Well, they are bastards, but we and in one particular day, I slid in for a ball. Both my hands were out, and the striker actually jumped on both my hands, which caused me to get rather upset and throw a few punches. To which I was then red carded. I was only about, I think I was only like 13 or something. Like it was it was like I ripped open my gloves and there were stop marks on my hand. And I like looked at the umpire, and the umpire was like, I didn't see it. And I'm like, well, I did. What's that?
It's almost, if the gloves don't fit, then you've got to...
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to hit.
You've got to hit, yeah.
To which I got sent off, and as I was walking off, the master in charge of the middle school, his name was Norman Maggs, and was also the master in charge of rugby, just sort of grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and just turned around and said, tough day, mate. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And he just looked at me and said, have you ever thought about coming and playing rugby? And I went, yeah, why not? So the next year I was eligible to play rugby as a, year 9, I think it was. We were eligible to play. I was actually the youngest on the team because I was actually younger in my
bottom age. Yeah.
Yep. And so my parents were a little bit worried about it. And apparently Magsy came around and had a chat to them, did the interview thing, and said, "Don't worry about it. We'll just bench him for the whole year, and he'll learn."
Yeah.
16 people signed up for rugby. Rugby is, of course, a 15-man sport. One of those guys broke their arm in the first game of a round robin. Damn. He broke his humerus. I'm getting to the judo, trust me. So,
No.
So he broke his arm in the first round, so all of a sudden there's 15 of us. So my parents weren't too. And
so first 15.
Absolutely. Yep. It was a baptism of fire.
Youngest ever.
So under 16, I was playing under 16 game and I was technically under 14 or something. And ended up playing it, loved it. It was my absolute first love.
Yep.
We were taught to play hard. We were taught to play fair. We were when I made first grade at school, our coach was of the ilk that if I see you punch, you better take him out because I'm dragging you with him. Yeah. Do not punch. If you cop it physically, you give it back within the bounds of the game. So fast forward that, continued to play. Went to university, finished school. Obviously, went to university. Ended up in clubland playing for both Box Hill and Croydon in the day, which is now Maroondah.
Right. Okay.
And sort of in between, and it was because of training nights as opposed to university. The last thing I ever wanted to do was change clubs. Yep. That being said, half of my school friends were either Croydon or Box Hill. Right. So those games were really interesting. We were all measuring each other up and looking at it. So that was a lot of fun. So making Colts grade, so under 21 back in those days was a bit of it was basically the next thing under first grade.
Yep.
In those days, second grade was 35-year-old blokes.
That had like country league.
Had a really crap day at work or crap week at work and didn't want to take it out on the kids and the wife. Yeah. So just come out and just go bang. Yeah. So I was trying to make my way into Colts grade and stuff like that. I got a little bit. I got quite ill at one stage. Took some time off. Came back to Colts grade. Tried to make my way into first. Was going to be rather difficult. And the first thing that I'd never really started on a bench.
Yep.
And I got benched. And I was working at the time as well, and it was sort of like every second weekend, you can't do this,
Yep.
And I wanted a guaranteed game, and I got a slap on the back, and it was sort of like, go to seconds, go and play seconds. So anyway, I went and played seconds. I was a flanker, blindside flanker. I've come off, grabbed the ball, gone in for into a ruck of some description. And I remember in this second grade thing, this guy, the winger, has come off his line, rucked my head, and then run back onto his line. And I'm like looking up, just like, mate, like I know where you are. And so later on, I found him.
I'm seeing two of you. Yeah. I'm going to go for the one in the middle.
So I found him, but for me, it was that thing where young, probably very arrogant.
Yep.
Because of...
It's amazing how those two go together.
So, it's just that thing about being young and arrogant. I took my bat and my ball and went home. I thought, I don't want to get into the fight, so I prefer to play rugby for rugby's sake.
Yep.
So I left, and I took about a year off. And I'm competitive. I'm competitive, but I'm not competitive, if that makes the...
Self-competitive. Got it.
You like the competition, but I love
the competition, and... a few people have said this to me. I never got as far as I could have in certain ways because I was too nice.
Yep.
And I'm sort of happy with that. But that being said, I was competitive on the mat and I'd do that sort of thing. So I was sort of getting competitive and doing nothing, and I really wanted to do something. So I just out of the blue, I just went, I might try judo.
And how old were you at this stage?
20. I reckon I was back 23.
Wow.
Jump back on. So that being said, start all over again. Right? So start all over again. And then from there, so jump back on the mat. And then it was real fits and starts sort of deal. You start it, things get in the way because it's not part of your general routine.
Yeah. New things start hurting again.
Absolutely. So, and thank God for Arthur and his sprung floors. That's all I can say. So pretty much got back into it really, and then really hit it hard, probably about 96, 97.
Yep.
And really started pushing through into, No, I reckon 98. Yeah, 97, 98. Really started hitting it hard and having a fair crack at it. And that's when... So, yeah, just made the call. And my first intention was I'd played junior state rep in rugby for schoolboys.
Yep.
So, so for me, it was sort of like, I might go and see if I can make a second state team in a second sport.
In a second sport, yeah.
So, yeah. And then that slowly but surely came up. And then from there... And the one thing that I love about specifically my club, which was Caulfield, was that at that stage, judo in Australia was at a golden era. It was a real... We had this thing where just the names that I was able to compete with at a club level and also train with at a club level were massive, and they've all gone on to do wonderful things. And,
Well, you say around that time, like the Sydney Olympics would have already been known, so everyone's got, hey, we can compete at home. And,
and then that's the thing too, the funding was there. So you've got all this funding going on. So there's a lot of people that were... So these particular names, they were there. And the one thing that they did for a person who was competitive and for a person who hungered to be challenged, I was actually dragged up by the ears. So you had your two types of people. So you got the social judoka that would sort of walk in and they might shy away from the elite players. And for me, it was just the point where, hey,
that's what I'm here for.
If you're going to throw me 1,000 times, if I rip one off on you, I'm so happy. And Andrew Collette. But arguably, in my opinion, one of the best technical judo players that I've ever seen, and that I've had the pleasure of sharing a mat with. If you threw Andrew, and that was a rarity. You basically had to look at the time because he was going to flog you the next. And you knew it too. And he'd smile, he'd just grab you, and he'd be like, you got 2.5 minutes of hell, mate. And he'd throw at will. He'd just bang, bang, bang. So that sort of stuff. So, that's how I got back into it. And for mine, I got as far as I did, A, from training, but B, I was told to a point that there was a natural part of me that was good, but also too because I lacked the experience in relation to those guys that have been doing it since day dot. It was the point where I had to overthink everything. So from a judo perspective, or from a jits perspective, or from whatever, when you really go through where you are and the technicalities of if it was sort of colour by numbers, for want of a better word, and then I would. Okay, this equals that, and then sort of put it to my mind. That to me is the only reason.
It's funny because I found it like that. When you start to listen to the coaches and they say do A then B then C, and you go, okay, I'm actually going to do A then B then C. It tends to work that way.
Absolutely, and you don't overthink it. And I think the thing from a martial arts perspective, and having experience in other places where they're just ready to run. You show them the thing, and then they're doing it 100%. You sort of like slow down. Get it right, and then sort of like looking at you as in like, and all you want to do is show them a mirror. Right? So it's like that guy that thinks he's like Usain Bolt going for the jog, and then you catches himself in the mirror, and he's all arms and swinging windmills and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
the white belt spaz we call it, and everyone's done
swimmer.
Swimmer. You end up gassed after 3.5 minutes, and you're like, how is this other fucker? Like some 40-year-old bloke still going fine.
Because he's not holding his breath.
That's what it's been. Holding your breath is a killer.
Absolutely.
But what I found, especially for the same as with judo and jiu-jitsu, is when you're learning the moves, having those steps, but breaking down the mechanics of it, those little parts, because you look at it in one fluid motion, and you're like, oh, yeah, I used to do this. But you don't realise there's one little tiny variation of like a hip placement or a foot inside, the outside, that makes all the difference.
Absolutely.
Until you break it down.
So it's that, you go, all right, I've got to concentrate on this grip. And they go, okay, good, you got the grip right. Now we need that foot there. Now this hip's going to go here.
Yeah, turn your heels out, spread your toes, and those minor little details.
And you're like, oh my God, it just comes together.
I did a private with Mal, a year and a half.
Time ago.
A while ago. And we did one throw for an hour. And I was just like, every little bit. I've got it written down.
The hardest part was getting back up afterwards.
He was throwing. That's
I was very... I don't know if Mal was very accommodating or not, but I didn't spend much time down on the mat. It was Mal going, bang, all right, back now, change this a little bit, let's see if I... This is how old it is. I kept it on my notes on my iPhone, and I haven't deleted it yet. And, that's real slow. Diashi combo into a Soto.
Oh, there you go. Yep, no, one of the best.
Okay, what's that in English?
So Diashi Barai, which is basically it's an outside foot sweep, or it's a simple foot sweep.
Yep.
And what happens is rather than actually attack it, so in judo you might have a direct attack.
Yep.
Or you might have a setup or a combination.
It's like
so, for example,
a bait in for a trap or something like that.
So, or if it just doesn't work, so because you might mistime it or what have you, or the person might be able to block it. So the idea is what we were working on with Heath was as I foot swept, or as he attempted the foot sweep, the person would block it and put their weight on that foot, which then would allow him to take a step in. And then go into a different throw from Osoto.
I think I know this.
So, which is a Sotogari, which is a major outer reap of the leg. So, and it's a very.
When I did, I think you said if you got this in a judo competition, they'd be very embarrassed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, Diashi, if you get foot swept, just have a look. Go on YouTube and see high-level judokas just getting either Ouchigari or Kouchigari or Diashi, and you watch the guy when he hits the deck. Watch his face when he gets up, or watch him slap the mat or get upset. It's a very, it's sort of like you've just been owned. You've been bent over the bonnet. And you're not, so if you get the Diashi, but mind you, if you get the combination of the Osoto, they'd sort of go, I avoided the bend over and he's done something else.
Yeah.
So, absolutely.
So you'd almost prefer to just avoid that initial embarrassment to get beaten 30 seconds from that time.
Oh, yeah, pretty much.
It's a bit like DC when he fought John Jones. At least he got one takedown.
He got one takedown.
It was in the fifth.
Yeah.
And Jones already had 6 of them, or whatever it was.
He's like, that's what I came here to do.
But the only disappointing thing I found, and it's with jiu-jitsu as well, like the names, like that was, Diashi into Osoto. Yeah. Like, it sounds so cool in Japanese. Then you find out the translation, it's like, major hip throw. Like,
it's like a literal translation.
Like, jiu-jitsu's the same. You get these moves sound so cool, and you go, it means shoulder.
And until you get 10th Planet guys coming in, saying, we're going from hot dog to zombie to electric chair.
Into the truck. You see, they're the two. There's very little in the middle. It sounds really cool, but is actually real basic translation.
It sounded really cool when you were high.
There's
10th Planet.
That's pretty much. So you did it a little bit as a kid, and then went away and came back in the 20s. So how long was until the black belt? Because, I mean, black belt's still that mystique, isn't it? No matter what,
it definitely is. Look, and that's the thing. I think it's one of the, without wanting to upset anyone out there that's listening from a martial arts perspective.
We don't have many Taekwondo people.
That's fine.
We all filled in the blanks there.
But it's that thing where, 8-9 years.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's a process.
Yeah.
And you have to earn it. And that's the thing. And there was one saying that I once heard, and I think it stands today. I would rather be a Dan grade rated brown belt than a brown belt rated Dan grade. And that's the thing about it. So, and that was the thing that I loved about Arthur. Arthur would push you. He would sit there. You go, no, you're not ready yet.
Yep.
No, you're not ready yet. And then when you thought you still weren't ready, you might get the drag, and it'd be like, right, let's move here and let's do this now. So, from a judo perspective, most of them, from my understanding, most of the Dan grades that you'd have in this country are worthwhile, worthy Dan grades because of our system, because of the way the system works. We have a gradings policy, we have all that sort of stuff. So,
and it's been around for a while.
Absolutely,
so it's not Johnny come lately.
Absolutely, and it is that thing where you can't. It's very difficult to accelerate at all. And you pretty much can't in this day and age.
Especially with judo, there is such a rich competition element to it. I mean, you can't, slap a belt on someone and then go to comps and go, well,
you get embarrassed,
Well, the proof is on the mat.
Every dog will have their day. And I think the difference with and a lot of people, especially the jits people, might not understand that generally in our competition-wise, it's open.
So
the gradings are open. So you can find a yellow belt versus a black belt.
Yep.
Those are the perfect opportunities for a yellow belt to just throw caution to the wind. Because a black belt will come out. Black belt will come out and be rather, I got this. And I've witnessed it. I've witnessed it before where orange belts have just goshied the crap out of decent black belts. And they're just, like, oh, gee, and you're
that
like,
second
whoa.
lapse.
Whoops. You took it too lightly. And that's the thing. I think, and I love that's the thing I love about judo to that point where every dog can have their day.
Yeah.
I once fell over in a competition. It was just a local. I went for a throw and I caught my ankle on. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I will. I caught my back of my foot on my gi pants as I was doing the turn. Slipped on my ass. And I was against a guy that was a little bit bigger than me. I think he was an orange belt or something. And he's jumped on me straight away. Bang, right? Now, he didn't get the score for the throw, but he's now in the difference.
Newaza?
Yeah, we're in Newaza. So we're in groundwork. We're in, Now, the one thing that jiu-jitsu guys love, they love to be on their back. Now, if he's in my back and outside my guard, so if he's past me, so let's say side control or north-south or kesikatami, right? That sort of stuff. He will... It's what's called osaokomi. That's a hold down.
Yep.
Now, I've got in this day and age now, you have 20 seconds to get out. Right? Yep. So this guy's on top, right? And he's heard the word osaokomi. He's gone to get up. Yep. Now, it's a local. And I just pulled him back down. I go, no, mate, you've got me. Right?
Just stay here.
Stay here, right? Thinking full well that I was still pretty fit, because it was later in my career that I would be able to roll him no problem. I forgot how big he was. I pulled him back into basically side control. Yeah. So... And, he beat me. So, but that being said, as he stood up, he just looked at me and I just turned around and I said, well, you've got to learn somewhere, somehow. Yeah, and that's a point where, again, I think that comes down to me not being a mongrel. And probably why I lost it. Yeah, too nice. But also, too, it's that thing where the understanding of my sport is that anything can possibly happen. Yeah. Whether it be your mistake, their mistake, what have you.
So that's the judo equivalent of superku.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, no, I
mispronounced that.
But what I've found is that, especially for white belts or the yellow belts in judo, is that obviously there's so much to learn and it's impossible to really grasp it all at once. But you'll always have that one move that you just naturally gravitate towards and you get good at it. And that's your one move that when you're learning, you practice everything else, but you've got that one move that you really like doing.
Bruce Lee said, I'd rather have... it's better to...
face a person that has done one punch 1,000 times than 1,000 punches one time.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
And it's like, if you're not prepared that they're really good at that one technique and they catch you out, then that's when you get embarrassed.
And that's exactly right. And unfortunately for white belts, yellow belts and orange belts, it's generally a drop throw of some description. Right. And they always seem to get it on other white belts, yellow belts and orange belts. Yeah. Hence, as you may remember, and maybe a fair few people, I was always taught, and this is actually a... what's the word? This is actually a new coaching thing that I'm taught by a friend of mine, that he refuses to do any drop technique. He won't teach it until you're higher up.
Okay.
For the simple fact where it's that thing where I've got nothing else to do. I've got no other option. Hey, I'll just fall down on my ass, put a leg out and hope you trip over. You do that to a Dan grade, we're basically on top of you straight away, or we'll counter that throw. Or we'll counter that attempt. So so drop Hizagurumas, Yoko Tomonagi or Tomonagi. So the old TV.
I like Tomonagi.
In the gut with the foot throw, flick them over. Yeah. Looks great.
It does.
If you miss it, actually, I've got a very good story about missing Tomonagi. One particular day at Caulfield, we had these gentlemen from. Central Asia / Russia type areas, and they gravitated towards our club a lot.
Right.
And one particular day, they'd obviously done something. I think the gentleman, I'm not going to name this person because he's still around. He was. I think
I might actually know him because he might. Did he come to the Randaramis?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, I know who it is then.
So. So this particular gentleman who's a little bit older than I am, he was a yellow belt, but this guy had sambo.
Right.
Sambo background, all right? Yeah. And very stiff, Anyway, one particular day, we're doing all these randoris and all this sort of stuff, and I look over, and the mat was this was sort of in the old heyday, and the mat was quite busy.
Yeah.
And there's this bloke just lying lifeless, not this gentleman, but another bloke just lying lifeless, face down on the mat. I lift him up. His nose is broken. Jeez. There is blood all over the mat. I look at him and I go, mate, are you all right? He's dazed, his nose is all crooked. And I'm like, mate, where's your partner? Are you okay? And he's like deer in headlights looking at me going, yeah. So I've got him up and sat down. And I'm looking around. Everyone else has got partners except this bloke. so they've either scarpered or the ghost of the judo club just come and bang. Next thing you know, this particular gentleman just sort of sheepishly walks out of the toilet. I've like sat this guy down. I'm like, hey, person, were you his partner? Yeah. And I'm like, mate, I looked, I said, what happened? He goes, I did Tominagi, right? Apparently, when he's pulled him down for Tominagi, his knee has just gone smashed straight into his face. Right? And I just turned around and I said, did you not tell anyone? You don't just go to the toilet. To which he's just sort of like looking and going, oh yeah, I suppose so.
Blood.
Absolutely. But again, what this comes down to is that old school, hard-ass Russian mentality of bad luck sort of sambo. Because those guys, I've got friends that have done sambo and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're no nonsense, man.
I just love to see the thought process. He seems unconscious. I might take a shit.
It's his first walk-off KO.
Well, I think, having achieved what you have in judo and being around a lot of high-level jiu-jitsu players and also rugby, I think an important question that a lot of people going into martial arts would want to know would be, which one has the best groupies?
Oh, that's a hard one. I think now because of the popularity, you'd have to say BJJ.
Really?
Absolutely, from a groupie perspective, definitely.
Yeah, I got to say, I'm missing out then.
Right. Yeah. Are we talking local groupies?
No. We're definitely not. We're all happily married.
Happily married. Yeah. I think with the popularity, I think popularity brings everything, and I think at the moment, jiu-jitsu it's riding an amazing wave, and it can only be. It's currently only being challenged by MMA, but ultimately, when you think about it, jiu-jitsu sort of bred MMA. And from that perspective, the only other thing that is, and I don't want to get a moan because, but the only other thing that is currently actually competing with it would be CrossFit.
Yeah, really?
Absolutely. I think from the most popular sport around in relation to where you're getting those consistent practitioners just walking in, doing stuff, I think that absolutely.
So for all the jokes about it, it is insanely popular.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting that you see now that for example, Resilience Training Centre, which is run by Daniel Kelly and Maria Peckley. Yep. So Daniel, obviously full-time Olympian, UFC fighter now, all that sort of stuff. He fights on Sunday.
I was going to say, he fights in Adelaide, doesn't he?
Fighting
on Sunday too. It's a really good fight.
And Maria Peckley, 5-time Olympian, bronze medalist, 2000. They've got their own gym out out Footscray Way.
Yep.
And they've incorporated, it's got judo, it's got Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but it's got CrossFit. And they're getting a lot of their judoka to do the CrossFit stuff. And from our perspective. So I was actually discussing this with an old judo friend of mine over the weekend, and we were talking about Tabata training.
Yeah.
Right? So, and they just looked at me and their quote was, who the fuck gave it Tabata training? We knew it as interval training. We just knew it as doing intervals.
That's me too.
Hey, fancy name. All of a sudden it's popular. It's like, we've been doing that for 20, 30, 40 years.
Marketing 101.
That's the thing, marketing 101. But it's also like you're not reinventing. So when you look at things that CrossFit do, love it or hate it, honestly, it's beneficial. Whether or not they're doing something one way or something a different way, or when they do their chin-ups and the loop chin-ups and stuff like that, half the people that complain about it, honestly, I reckon they'd never be able to do a chin-up in life. And that's the biggest issue with me, and that's the hardest part, I think, from a person that is active and enjoys sport. There's nothing worse than an armchair critic who goes, your form wasn't right. And that's the thing where, for me too, if you're training, so from a judo perspective, or you're training those sort of things, there's a time to be fluent and there's a time to be strict with what you do. If you're doing kata or if you're doing things, you should always try and make sure that it's within the guys. The minute you get into competition, if it works, it isn't wrong. End of discussion. If you can find a throw, right, and now ultimately from a judo perspective, technically there's 40 throws in the Gokyo, 40 official throws. Then from there, there's all the band throws. Then from there, there's the hybrid throws. Then from there, there's this, there's that, there's that. I could show you. I just saw it just recently, and as soon as I saw it, I just sat there and I went, why did I never think?
Yeah.
And it is. And I think it might be on my Facebook page. I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
It is a double sleeve. So the guy's got one sleeve each.
Yep.
And basically we have a throw called Sode Tsurukomagoshi, which is basically you cross your sleeves over and then do a hip throw.
Yep.
Right.
He's basically done that entry. To block it, the man's put his foot forward, so he just foot swept him.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was a pure setup, and it was. And I just sat there, and the guy, it was who was it? It was a Polish guy. I think it was Polish dude versus a Russian guy.
Yep.
And the Russian guy wasn't too happy.
Oh.
He was rather upset with obviously
With himself, yeah.
Yeah, but getting foot swept, and especially in that, you don't see it coming. And again, what that comes down to is that's, for want of a better word, and I don't like to use it, but a bastardization of the sport in relation to how it works.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
But that's what I love about sort of that younger generation get into these sorts of arts like BJJ and judo as well, where they've taken sort of out of the box approach to it, where they've seen tradition and they've gone, all right, but what do I apply to my game? And then they take what they've learned from tradition and have their own little creative edge to it. And I think that's really good in progressing these arts into sort of that modern arena of mixed martial arts, and especially with Olympics and things like that.
Absolutely. From us, we do have, you sort of do have two camps. You've got Olympic style judo, which is competitive style judo, and you have what's called Kodokan judo, which is the form of judo. It's all about the form and stuff like that.
The martial art.
And I know that there seems to be that rumbling in the BJJ world where you've got, the self-defense form versus the sport form and all that sort of stuff. And you know what? There's room enough for everyone.
Exactly.
That's and I think that sort of we've learnt from that mistake. I think from a judo perspective, because there was a massive break-up in the late 60s, 70s or something when the federations and the unions and all that sort of stuff. And I think it was part and parcel of that.
Right.
To a point.
Yep.
Pardon me. But, and I do, you often see these people, Henzo Gracie's saying this, and everyone's kicking on that, and then another bloke turns around and says this, and it's sort of like, guys, if you don't want to do that,
Don't do it. Yeah.
don't do it.
Yeah. Exactly.
If I want to, so the best way that I could describe it is most judoka, probably about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, we all started dipping our feet in the BJJ thing, just to learn different tricks for our ground game.
Well, it came from judo anyway.
There's a natural synergy between BJJ and judo as well.
But and that's the thing when you ultimately look at it from this perspective. Kano was a jiu-jitsu master. Right. He sent Maeda across to BJJ. Across to Brazil. To teach them judo. They preferred the ground technique. Right. We have a form called Kozen Judo, which is basically all ground technique anyway. Right. But it just comes down to so he's done that. The Gracies turned around and said, "No, look, we don't really like the judo. Just give us the jiu-jitsu side of it." And he concentrated more on the ground stuff. The reason Kano created this was that you're supposed to think of yourself in full samurai garb. Unarmed. If I throw you and you're wearing armor,
you're not getting
you can't get up. So therefore, you're at my whim. That's that. If I throw, or if we both fall down, then from there I'm going to try and do other things. And it was basically just created to what's the word? To appease those people in a feudal system that was no longer feudal. If I'm a samurai and you're a samurai and we can't fight. I'm not allowed to do this anymore. What can you do, sort of deal? And and that's the thing.
That's pretty much why the English invented soccer. Run out of wars.
So and that's why the concept of you falling flat on your back in judo as an ippon, end of discussion.
That makes sense
because technically you're dead.
That makes a whole lot of sense. And that's the other thing with judo is that it seems like such a solid foundation to build any other martial art on top of, because you require such a solid base and a solid understanding of balance and
controlling yourself
movement
and someone else
and leverage, and especially where you don't have to be the biggest person, but you have to know how to use all your body weight in regards to either stopping someone from doing what they want to do or having an offensive attack against someone. And that's why, especially with the sort of little feud that's going on with the European BJJ judo and the UFC and whatnot. And it seems like they're sort of a match made in heaven, because like you're talking about, they're very synergetic in how they can flow on from one another. And Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on?
Yeah, you can say, do you keep up with all the latest rumblings that have been going on the last 6 to 12 months?
I try to. Don't get too much of it, but I did see that the French Federation, as far as I can remember, I'm not too sure if it's been pulled, but any judoka, any national ranked judoka or something like that will be immediately banned if they do it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I can't remember what their reasoning was for it.
Yep.
But guys like these are names to us like Teddy Rinier. You put him in if he learned how to punch, that'd be very interesting.
Yeah.
This guy's he's a god. He's an absolute god of judo, and I don't know whether he can punch. I don't know, but you put him in with his skill, it would definitely work. But again, something. Coming back to what you're talking about the basic fundamentals of judo and how to move somebody and how to do that.
Yeah.
It transcends so many different places.
Yep.
And I've looked at it from a different way. I look at judo as a hub sport.
Yep.
So if you learn to fall, here's what you can do.
Yep. Yeah.
If you do this, here's what you can do.
Yep.
If you learn how to move somebody, here's another sport that you can do.
Yeah.
And I've sort of capitalised on that with my post-competition stuff.
Yep.
And just recently, I think it was today, I actually haven't read the article. A mate of mine sent me an article, and it basically, I think it says, X amount of reasons why judo is beneficial for any sport.
Yeah, exactly.
Or any athlete. And and I had a quick skim through it, and I haven't had the chance to fully read it. But it is. And that's the problem with being jaded. People will see, well, I have a vested interest. If I can be absolutely objective, absolutely. With what I know, the first thing, and I get asked this a lot, what martial art should I teach my kid?
Yeah.
And the first thing I say is teach them a martial art where they fall.
Yep.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
Aikido, yes, they fall. Judo, yes, they fall. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the one thing, and this isn't a criticism. This isn't a criticism. It's just an observation.
Yeah.
A lot of people that I've worked with, whether it be through privates or whether it be through seminars and things like that, they will come up and they'll go, I know how to break fall. And then they do a forward roll.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, no, the forward roll is not that part. And I'm not being a smart ass. It's just the fact where some people will think that that's what it is.
Yep.
Yeah. Can someone who's done so much judo as you, can you close your eyes and hear a break fall and go, no, that's wrong? Because I reckon when I'm in the gym, when you hear somebody break fall, you hear that whack. You're like, that's done it right.
Oh, definitely.
You
want
that quick transference of energy down the arm and then just that pinpoint at the fingertips.
I've never done it.
Okay.
I've never done it, but when I come back for wings, I will have done it, and I will say to you, yes or no.
Yeah.
Yep.
But no. Yeah.
I reckon I can, because you can hear that rhythm where sort of you hear the butt
and just
the shoulder and the
And it's that crack at the end of the energy just going.
And then you hear someone who just goes thump, thump, and you're like, well, that didn't quite sound
that's
right.
usually me.
I reckon you could definitely, like, if it was a real shocker, you definitely know the difference. But yeah, it is. It's one of those things where that would be my first port of call.
Yep.
I put a tweet up yonks ago in relation to it, and I just put, what was it? Gi $80, classes $20. Learning to fall confidently at any time, priceless. And it really is. It's absolutely priceless.
Yeah.
So that being said, but coming back to it, and that's the hard part I've found with doing private lessons and seminars with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu people, because sometimes they do actually think, oh yeah, it's just going to be a forward roll. And then they get thrown, or you show them a break fall, you throw them, and then they look at you as in like,
they've stuck a forearm out.
Yeah, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. Because it is. It's you're using body. You're doing things that are not normal. Because we're asking you to change everything that you want to do. Because you want to put your hand down, you want to do all that sort of stuff, and also too, falling hurts.
Yeah, of course it does.
It does. The idea is that
part of the idea of it.
I once had someone bang. That really hurt. I thought break falling, it doesn't hurt at all. No.
It just spreads the hurt. That's all.
And then after a while, what happens is, unbeknownst to it, you don't, but I've built scar tissue everywhere. No, but soon enough, what happens is you just get used to it.
Yeah.
You get used to it. Your body adapts to it. The body is an amazing thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we're talking stereotypes, jiu-jitsu guys are known for having piss poor stand up.
Yeah.
So it goes with their idea of a break fall is pulling guard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But and that's the thing about it. I really get confused about a sport that starts standing up.
Yep.
Yep.
That you want to get to the ground, and
Spend
guys
so
just want to
little
sit
time.
down and spend so little time. If someone asked me about it one day, and I said, if you put the break down, I reckon it's 98% ground,
Yeah.
2% standing.
Yep.
Maybe I could go to 3 or 4, maybe.
Yeah.
From my experience that I've had. Whereas from a judo perspective, it's changed now.
Yeah.
We sort of, back in the day, it was sort of like, 70-30.
Yep.
Yep.
Maybe the European style and the Japanese style are completely different. But now, it's pretty much almost 50-50. Maybe 60-40. So you have people where, and I wasn't a technician or a ground guy by any stretch of the imagination. I came from a club where throwing was important because it's the concept of judo is maximum efficiency for minimum effort.
Yeah.
Okay, so if my match goes for 5 minutes and I reckon I can throw you in 1. There's no use me mucking around with you on the ground.
Yeah.
So if you go to the ground in my sport, I'm allowed to just look at the referee, put my hands on you, and he'll go, okay, stand up, go again.
We'll do it again.
Yep.
So and that's fine. I've choked out 2 blokes and put maybe 2 submissions on in my time.
Wow.
Yep.
And one of them, I was at I think it was a Victorian International Open or something, and I'd ripped on a strangle. And I seriously almost gave myself a hernia. And I was I'm ripping this thing on. And the referee was on her knees underneath looking at this guy to just see where he was and what he was.
That's good reffing.
She was about to call it. She had her hand up to say Mate, and thank God this guy's gone. And I'm like, yeah, it's on. I had nothing left. I was seeing stars. And then she's like, Mate, I stood up and I was like really dizzy. And I was like, oh, yep.
That's all I had.
So for me, it's that point where I would only ever, and this was the way that I did, and I would not suggest this.
Yep.
When we were doing Niwaza training, I would immediately, so we'd bow, I'd immediately go into turtle. The reason I'd go into turtle, because of the Osakomi rule.
Yep.
But I'd go into turtle and I'd hold off for approximately 15 seconds.
Right.
So if that person could not get me rolled over or in a position for 15 seconds, I'd be brought up so I could go again.
Yep.
Once I'd seen that 15 seconds, I just threw caution to the wind, and 9 times out of 10 would just get owned.
Yep.
So,
Before we move off jitsu, you were also on the training squads for the Olympics or practice squads?
Yeah, I was a training partner in 2004 and 2008. So,
How did that come about, and what do you do as a training partner?
You get flogged. So pretty much, there was a call. The Judo Federation of Australia put out an invite for people to apply.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
You were then ratified by the Judo Federation, the Australian Olympic Committee, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
What sort of questions do they ask? Like, do you heal quickly?
Oh, no. I wish they had. No, just ratified. So basically, is this guy good enough to go?
He legit?
Yeah.
Is he good enough to go? And
Is
that
he
was
not crazy enough that he'll injure someone?
Absolutely. And then that's the thing. So I got dragged along in 2004. I was making my run I was having a crack at 2008.
Yep.
It didn't go my way. I came, I think it was seventh, I think, in the first qualifier. Lost to a very good friend of mine, bastard. So I lost to a very good friend of mine to try and get through a little bit further, which then left me open. So therefore, basically, the second qualifier you had to make the Australian squad.
Yep.
So to go through, and what I had to do to make the Australian squad, I can't remember mathematically. It was mathematically it was possible.
Yep.
As far as the rest was concerned, it was hard. I had Mark Anthony who went to London and beat the reigning European champion at the time. So I had him in my thing. I had Tom Hill, Commonwealth Games gold medalist from 2002, and one of the stalwarts of our sport. I had all these guys to worry, and then I had the Kiwis to worry about. So and a few others, but. So basically what had to happen was for me to medal at the national titles. Once I medaled, if I medaled, it would have got me top 3, which would have got me on the plane, which then I would have been on for and had a go. And anything could happen in the day, and it actually did in my weight division. Which
really,
yeah. So a week before the national titles, I broke my hand.
Oh, lovely.
So I was dirty. I broke my head. I had a spiral fracture on my.
From training or elsewhere?
Yeah. So I had a little throw that ended up getting nicknamed the Heartbreaker, and it was from I won't name this person. They might listen. There was a particular person who pushed it to me but never beat me, and they were sort of like my bunny. Judo bunny.
Yep.
And
we'll call him Daryl Cullinan.
So Judo Daryl, Judo Daryl and I had a few. We had a little bit of it was a healthy competition.
Yeah.
It was a healthy competition. Don't wish the guy any ill will. He's a great person. He's a really nice guy. But from that perspective, we were pretty staunch, and I think he was the guy coming up. Like, I wasn't at the peak, but he was a little bit below me, and he was really trying to claw. And I did the same thing. I used to pick people that I wanted to beat, and when I got to them, I'd look ahead. And I think I was one of those people. Very, very good judoka. Anyway, one particular day, we'd fought a few times, and the last fight, it was the last fight we'd had. He got me with Yoko Tominagi.
Okay.
So he got me with Yoko Tominagi. So Yoko Tominagi is side. So basically, Yoko means side.
Yep.
He did the Tominagi, but he's sort of gone into my side and turned me to his side.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Without going too far into visuals and stuff.
Yep.
Anyway, as I've gone over, I've never really been super agile.
Yeah.
So
like all of us.
rather than being able to do the old one-armed cartwheel and stand over, in midair, I knew I was going over back first. So I turned and basically took it halfway.
Yep.
So to minimise the score, if the referee's listening, I honestly think it was still a Yuko.
We'll make sure he gets it.
Yeah. It was actually so I got scored a Wazari. So 2 Wazaris equal a Nippon. If he gets me with another Wazari, I'm dead.
So half point. Basically.
Absolutely. So the issue with that is Wazari is a really hard thing to chase down.
Yep.
And we're talking back in the days where you could get penalised. So he could muck around for an hour and a minute and a half and get penalised, and we'd be about equal sort of deal. Okay. So he had a lot of time on his sleeve.
Yeah.
So anyway, we were coming down to, I think it was like 10, 15 seconds left on the clock. I got my grip.
Yep.
I got this specific grip for this throw that I did, and it was basically a sit-down Taniotoshi, for want of a better word. Right. It's hard to describe.
Again, they sound awesome.
Anyone that fought me would know it, because I became the biggest one-trick pony you've ever seen in your life. And it actually, as much as it was a really, really good throw, it sort of ruined my judo. I had really good haragoshis and all that sort of stuff, and I just put this one on.
Yeah.
I'll tell you if I've got time, I'll tell you the origin.
All the time in the world.
I'll tell you the origin of the throw in a minute. But so anyway, this guy was protecting that grip like there was no tomorrow. He did not want me to touch my left hand on his right lapel.
Yeah.
So and with about 15 seconds on, I've latched on.
Yep.
I've hooked his other arm in. So like I basically locked that side up.
Yep.
And he has run backwards for dear life. I have just gone with him and taken the biggest step you could ever, almost like a hurdler's pose.
Yep.
Grabbed his inside leg and flicked him over. As he's hit, he's just turned around, the expletives came out, and he's just looked, he's going, well, that's just fucked my weekend up. And I'm like, I got up, and one of my guys just turned around and he said, what did he say to you? And I said, he just said, I just really fucked his weekend up. And he turned around and he goes, oh, you're a heartbreaker. And we went,
there we go.
There it is.
Yeah, so, it's because he banged his missus too.
No.
Never proven.
Malcolm bangs.
It finally arrived. So it did happen. But yeah, so the origin to that throw was we had a Japanese guy. I can't remember. He just came from Japan, just jumped on our mat, sort of mucked around a little bit, and immediately the first thing I would do is seek them out.
Yep.
The one thing that I love about our sport and the martial arts in that realm, in my opinion, the true test of a person's mettle is whether or not you go and beat up the little kids or you go out there and you just turn around and you go, you're really good.
Yeah.
Come over here and show me something.
Yep.
You learn more.
You learn proper audit.
Absolutely. You learn more from your mistakes.
Yeah.
I've learned more. Honestly, and I'll stand by this, I've learned more from my mistakes.
Yeah.
And I have come further from every failure I've ever had than I would have if I was successful. Yep. And that's what I honestly believe. So this particular gentleman, he kept getting me with this bloody thing. And I just turned around and I went, excuse me. I said, how long? And this was, So what this was there was an invasion of Russian judo in the late 90s, early 2000s. You had to have leg picks and grappling, sort of wrestling style.
Yeah.
If you didn't have a kataguruma, so like a fireman's carry or something like that,
Right.
you needed it in your arsenal because it was going nuts.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, here's this guy with this perfect other version. I had one kataguruma, he had a different style for me. I was like, beautiful.
Right.
And it was technically a sit-down Tenryotoshi, but it sort of looks like a kataguruma. All good. So I'm having a chat to him. I'm like, how long are you in the country for? Pardon me. He's like, I leave next week. Da, 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 da. I said, are you training anywhere else? He goes, yeah, I think I'm training somewhere else, blah, blah, blah. And I said, can you come upstairs with me and teach me this throw?
Right.
So he went,
Nobody else has seen
absolutely. Straight upstairs. Went straight upstairs.
Locked the door.
Absolutely. Went through it. And I just turned around to him. I said, where will you be, what club, blah, blah, blah. And I just turned around to him and said, would you do me a favour?
Don't show him that.
If no one asks, don't. He didn't.
Yep.
Right?
Hey, the days before YouTube, eh?
Absolutely. And before, and the thing about this was that Maria Peckley was using this throw,
Yep.
Right.
but very rarely. But she'd pop it in a different way.
Right.
But it was there.
Yeah.
To this day. So basically then from there I just started honing it.
Yeah.
Honing it,
Yeah.
and it became my number one throw. And it was a decent throw because it would work to the advantage of the way the game was played.
Yeah.
Right.
And then from there, I'd have people try and throw me with my own throw, and they wouldn't know how to do it properly.
Yeah.
Or they'd come up, and I remember Ben Donegan, I think it was, turned around to me one day at one state training. He's like looking at me. He's going, "Can you show me that throw?" I said, "No." And
Anything else?
No. I just went no. And he sort of looked at me. He's like, well, "But listen," I said, "When I'm retired, maybe." Right? And I'll show anyone now because I can't actually do it. So, but that being said, Ivo de Santos, when they actually got rid of the leg picks, Ivo actually created a very similar throw without the use of grabbing the leg.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So immediately, I'd been retired, so and Ivo's nicer than me because I said, "Show me." To which he did, and I can't do it. So I always want to put the leg
useless.
there. Yeah.
So, one good thing about judo, though, you could always go full inscrutable oriental. You could say, I'll show you as soon as you can.
Take the pebble from my hand.
As soon as you can catch the swallow in mid-flight, and they'd be like, "Okay, yeah, have they go?" And you're like, "I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about." They can
Out that way, mate.
Good luck.
But yeah, so that's how that origin started, and so hence the heartbreaker that came to fruition.
Well, as they say, advantages are taken or handed out.
Yep.
So I think you played that one well.
Absolutely.
And that's one thing I love about sort of the Australian approach to martial arts, in general, the last 20 years, is that because we're not, a very historical country, I've been around for that long compared to everyone else, we haven't had time to build up that deep culture which caused rifts between certain martial arts. It's all generally pretty new. And so the acceptance of cross-training and going from one gym to another gym seems to be a lot more tolerated here than it does from overseas.
I think at the general level, there's still a lot of politics in all martial arts.
Yeah.
But you don't get the same 4 generations worth of politics.
But in Australia, like we went and trained at Jamie's gym.
Yeah.
We did a podcast there down at Renegade, and no problems. It's not a Devine gym, it's not associated PJ, but just good people. It's all right to go and train with them and take what you learn back to the people that you train with, and especially the cross training with. You don't have to be jiu-jitsu. You can be judo. You can go to do Muay Thai and anything, and it's okay. It's accepted.
Well, I think in Australia, you can learn something from everyone.
Yeah.
And that's especially true in all martial arts, because even if it's not applicable to your art, it can be applicable to your fitness, to your style, to your self-defense.
Which is something that's cool.
Yeah. And looking cool is damn important.
Of course it is.
Absolutely.
Anyone who says it's not is full of shit.
Gets you laid more than beating up people.
Coming back to what you just spoke about, and that's the beauty about this. And I think in some ways, some people get led by that social stereotype where, I'm just sporting.
Yeah.
And that if you're, I honestly believe this, if your coach legitimately says to you, don't go to that club, right,
He's hiding something.
there's something wrong.
Yeah.
No coach, I'm telling you right now, if you came to me and said, Malcolm, go through the 40 throws of the Gokyo, right, I would turn around to you and say, I'm weak at this, I'm not weak at this.
Yeah.
This is my forte, this is not.
Yeah.
You want to learn that, go over there because that person's world class or that person's really good at what they do and they'll take you through it. By all means, I'll get you to the basics.
Yeah.
But no one knows everything.
Yeah.
My skill was leg picks. My skill became leg picks.
Yep.
I was also a damn good Haragoshi guy, but
Heartbreaker.
I'll start a list.
Haragoshi. Yeah. I don't think these headphones will last long. But
They're Eddie tested. Okay.
but it is. It's that thing where you've got to know your limitations and you've got to know what it is. If someone came to me and said, "Oh, look, I want to learn these sort of judo Niwaza style because it's a little bit faster, etc., etc." I only show what I know. There's no use me trying to show somebody something that I sort of got an idea or sort of know how it does, and that's where a good coach comes in. I think there's the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
It takes numerous coaches to raise an athlete.
Yep.
Whether or not you be weekend warrior, or the elite of the elite,
Exactly.
And I understand where you're coming from to that point, but in relation, coming back to the feuds and all this, back in the heyday of judo in Melbourne, the majority of the 2000 Olympians pretty much came out of Laylaw Judo Club and Caulfield Judo Club.
Okay.
Right. 2004, majority came out. So it was a really Melbourne-based sort of deal, and there was a lot of friction between those two. There was a real bit of politicking going on.
Yeah.
Yep.
You either choose to get into it or you choose to bury your head.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was lucky. I was one of those people that I would train at Caulfield on a Monday, train at Laylaw on a Tuesday occasionally, and then train it back because I just didn't care.
Yeah.
I didn't care. And you stay away from people. So it'd be the point where if I was fighting the 81 kilo guy there, and we were in a bit of I might walk up to him and say, if we were actually competing for points or something like that, I'd say, look, are you right with me being here? Do you want to fight me? Or do you want to actually do randuri, or do you just want to keep going and we'll look over each other's shoulder and see who's doing what?
Start taking notes.
So it's that sort of stuff where, and that was the thing. I think it's how you perceive it more than anything else. And I think it's that thing where martial arts gives confidence. Martial arts gives so much confidence to everybody, whether or not you're good or you're not. It just gives you it exudes confidence. And the one thing a confident person should do is stand up for themselves and stand up for their beliefs.
Exactly.
Right? I would not want someone to turn around to me and say, "Well, this is it." And then me just go blindly, "Oh yeah, all right."
Yeah.
It just won't work that way. And I think that's the hard part. You become new.
Yeah.
Into it, and you think, this is the status quo. If the status quo doesn't feel right, don't listen. That's why what's the Brazilian term for
Criange.
My coach. So this is legit. My coach is and always will be Arthur Moorehead.
Yep.
Now Arthur had 2 tin hips. Was old. Sorry, mate. He was a friend. He was like a surrogate grandfather. He was everything to me. He was a great man. Now, he will always be my coach. But under that, our club coach was Gabor Szabo.
Yep.
Under him, there was Ola. Then from there, I've got Angela Deacon was the national coach, one of the national women's coaches and stuff like that.
Yep.
I still to this day call her Coachy.
Yep.
Right? I've had so many different people that I could call coach, but Arthur Moorehead will always be my coach.
Yeah.
And that's the thing where, as an athlete, as a person that spends time at one club, you can call your home club your home club.
Yep.
I've run Bangs Dojo and Bangs Dojo Judo Club.
Yep.
That was one of the hardest days of my life.
Yep.
To sign a paper and ring up JFA and say, I can't be a Caulfield member anymore.
Because you're
right. Oh, okay.
That was hard for me. That was really, really hard for me. It was one of the, and that was, and I even running my club, my friend who is one of the coaches there, Nihiro Takatani, he was doing some gradings and stuff, and he said, "I just want you to come down on the mat." I'm like, "Absolutely." The first thing I did was walk up to my coach's wife, which is Susie. My coach has passed away, and he's been gone 5 years, and it just seems so yesterday. But the first thing I said to her was, "I'm home."
Yeah.
I ran a judo club at elsewhere, but I was home, and I always will be home.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So I think if there are people listening out there that worry about this, club versus club thing and all that sort of stuff, honestly, if a coach is telling you don't do this or don't do that, they're hiding something.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're hiding something. So
With the judo and the MMA, do you take a special interest when you see a judoka come up? Like, I mean, there's one name that's obvious.
Absolutely. Look, absolutely. Ronda Rousey has really put judo on the map. Look, Caro Parisian did.
I was seeing Caro did very well, yeah.
Caro was sort of the first sort of dude that...
Yeah. And he had some nice throws,
absolutely. The issue with Caro, and I think this is where the similarities could be made. Caro was a pioneer for judo in MMA. And Ronda is a pioneer for judo for women in MMA. Now, in relation to that, the differences are that most of the blokes that Caro was fighting, they've all fought for a long, long time in something.
Yep.
Whereas a lot of these women, so you compare that, Ronda Rousey has been doing this. Her mother, so for people that don't understand or don't know, her mother is a world champion.
Okay, and if you've watched the Ultimate Fighter when she was a coach...
Yes.
She's no bullshit.
Yep.
Her mother... Now, I've got to get this right. So basically, her mother won a world championship over an Australian called Sue Williams.
Okay.
This is a good... And Sue Williams, amazing. Now... Ronda has basically been, as if anyone that did watch that, you can see Ronda has pretty much been tormented all her life. But that being said, it has produced a very good high level judoka. She was
named the most dominant athlete in the world in the last couple of days.
She was a world champion. She was a junior world champion, and she won Olympic bronze.
Yep.
Now, in her mind, she expected more.
Of course,
right? And the thing with her, so just in this comparison, is that here's a girl that's been doing this, or a woman that's been doing this for pretty much most of her life, coming in to fight women that primarily at 16, 17, maybe 20, went to a jits club or went to a boxing club to get fit and went, hang on a second, I like this. Let me show. No amount of takedown defense, no amount of takedowns is going to, in any way, shape or form, beat Ronda Rousey.
Yep.
That being said, the only thing that was going to beat Ronda Rousey was another judoka.
Yep.
However, what she's now done, and no offence to any judoka that I happen to know that do MMA, have a look at judokas that punch. Seriously, right? Yeah. Sorry, guys. But have a look at what she's done.
Jitsu, there's no jitsu guys like that, Damien Meyer.
But it's this thing where...
Hosier.
It's this...
First 4 UFCs.
It's this thing now where what she's done is she's become a world-class striker.
Yeah.
So now, any world-class judoka that comes in, they're 5 years behind her striking.
Yeah.
They might have a better ground game judo game than her. But she's going to be able to hold them out with a punch.
Yeah.
Which is just... And then counter their judo with her judo.
Yeah.
So she has played, in my opinion, the perfect thing for her to probably... This might come back to bite me. Finish undefeated and retire.
Well,
undefeated.
I don't see anyone beating her.
I'm going to say Misha Tate's the second best in her weight division in the world, and there's a chasm between the two.
You know you've got your opponent screwed, literally mentally, when their corner turns around and says, you got to the second round.
Yeah, well done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That tells you something really, really big.
Yeah.
The only problem she's got is finding people to fight her.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're saying, is that we'll probably never see the best Ronda Rousey because there's no one that can push her to that level.
We're just waiting for the Cyborg fight, if it ever happens.
Yeah. And to be honest, I don't think Cyborg will have much for Ronda anyway.
Well,
it'll be interesting. It's the only interesting fight she's got left.
Yeah.
I mean, do you really want to see Misha?
Unless she's fighting Ian McCall.
Honestly, I think Ronda would knock her out just because that jaw goes a long way out. Ain't no hiding that thing.
I think that's the thing. The biggest thing that is, for me, scared me regarding Ronda's success, pardon me, was getting knocked out. But I don't think there's a woman on the circuit, and I'm unsure, that would have one punch knockout power.
I don't think there's many women in MMA that have one punch knockout power in that weight category.
Absolutely
not.
And that's the biggest probably danger there, or one kick knockout power sort of deal.
True.
You don't really see it, so therefore that plays into her hands very, very well.
Yeah.
So and look, I haven't really followed the Cyborg thing. You know, I heard about Cyborg and all that sort of stuff, and I understand how it works. But I'm commenting on this, and I probably shouldn't, but I'm commenting on...
Of course you can. We've commented on plenty of stuff we've no business commenting on.
We're going to millions of people, of course.
I'm sort of commenting on this without any... without any due diligence.
So like every other bloke commenting on every martial arts YouTube clip ever.
Cool. I honestly believe that from this perspective, you hear this thing where she is a black belt in jiu-jitsu or
Who, Ronda or
no,
Cyborg. I'm not sure. I think she's more of a kickboxing background, but I'm saying I'm not
shooter
sure.
box.
Shooter box or something because she
the
did a
box.
lot of grappling. She did a lot of grappling and all that sort of stuff. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, because now, and this is the other thing too, it's quite interesting, and I remember when I used to say to people, look out for Ronda Rousey after her first couple, people go, what does she do? Judo. Oh, yeah. And then you go, no, she's got ground game. Oh, so that's jiu-jitsu. It's like, no. Watch her ground game. It's
different.
It is. But that being said, now apparently she has been graded to black belt and BJJ as well.
Probably. I mean,
so, and you know what? That's the thing. Look, I've just to put it out there, 2004 US Open, I actually coached my partner against her in a competition.
Yep.
And all we kept yelling out was, bring your arm in, bring your arm in, bring your arm in. Because Ronda was actually on her arm on a consistent basis. So they would basically go to the ground in a neutral stance of some description, cat the turtle up or, try and do this. And she was on her arm consistently. Yeah. My partner lost by Shido. So she lost by a penalty because she... Just she wasn't fighting. She couldn't fight because basically it was going to the ground, and Ronda was so busy. Busy. Now, when that person's busy, you can't do much. So then all of a sudden, the ref just turns around and goes, "Mate,
do something.
Penalty to you," and that was it. So having seen her in action within the judo world, having been that close to the action where you're actually trying to coach against her with what she does and how she does it so naturally, you understand it. And from that, and I'm not taking anything away from Cyborg in any way, shape or form. I just think that she wouldn't have, I don't think she'd have the tools in multiple ways.
There's nobody else like her, so she wouldn't have faced anybody like her.
Exactly.
And I think women's MMA is at that stage that men's was a while back, in that people have a major style in women's MMA.
Yeah.
In the men's UFC levels and Bellator and everything, you don't have one style. Everyone's multi-style.
Exactly.
You have to be.
Artists now,
If you can't strike, forget about it. If you have no ground game, you're done. It doesn't matter. So much so that even guys like Big Country, you wouldn't call him the fittest athlete in the world. No. You wouldn't call him the fittest athlete in the suburb.
He's fitter than he looks.
He was I think he was a Division 1 NCAA wrestler.
Yeah. He's
until he figured out it was easy to just knock blokes out.
Absolutely. But that's the thing. When you can stand there and you've got you've got this NCAA Div 1 wrestling is massive in the US, right? So you put that as your backup?
Exactly. It's ridiculous.
It's like, what? Well, you
insane,
just sit there and just go, hang on a second. Okay, I'm just going to punch you in the head.
Isn't it funny though? He's a Div 1 wrestler. He is a world-class jiu-jitsu. Like he has wins over Matt Hughes at AD.
And he has that lovely overhand
and then
right.
He has the big overhand right.
Wow.
And that's the one
they should have just put, instead of having jiu-jitsu or overhand right or NCAA wrestler, just in style, just put mullet.
Yeah. It works for him.
KFC and a mullet. But what kind of annoyed me with sort of Ronda's success is that there's no doubt that judo is a fundamental element of the progression of martial arts from mixed martial arts perspective. Whereas if you want to learn anything, it's in your best interest to get very good at judo. Yep. It's like judo, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, striking. But it seems like judo in general hasn't picked up on the momentum that Ronda's created for it, and they're almost trying to fight against it. And it seems like for me personally, I like judo. I really learning just the basics of judo improved my ground game just with positioning and hip movement massively. And so I kind of find it annoying that they're not getting that advantage to where, for my opinion, when you're teaching little kids into martial arts, I think you get them judo first. Then when they're about 10, 12, 14, then you put them onto jiu-jitsu or something like that.
Absolutely.
But learn the fundamentals on how your body works, how leverage and center of gravity and balance and things like that. The mechanics of how your body can be used in your own advantage. And then learn how to put that into a real aggressive finishing, life or death situation.
Absolutely.
But I found it really annoying that it seemed like the European judo community were kind of fighting back against the success that Ronda was just waiting to give them all.
I think because I think it's illegal. I think MMA. I think that's what I remember now. MMA is illegal in France.
Right.
I think so. Therefore, it's that thing where so they've yet to. They've sort of yet to woke up to it. So it's sort of that thing where,
Yep.
it's illegal in France. So therefore, if you do it, you're banned, etc. So
That might. I remember a couple of seasons ago in the Ultimate Fighter, the French fighter, who came in and said, "I'm here to represent the French and to show that, to show that we are not
Quitters.
quitters or whatever." And then he quit on his stool.
Yeah.
But
I
think
what did groundskeeper Willie call him? Cheese eating surrender monkeys.
Yes, that's the one. Like that.
But I think judo should be wrestling for the rest of the world, because we don't grow up wrestling at school and any of that stuff. But I think judo can fill that gap, because I remember even in Broken Hill, where I grew up, the first martial art I was ever exposed to was judo, because one of my friends did it.
Yeah.
And the first thing I ever learnt was a break fall
Yep.
in the classroom in year 3. I still remember it to this day. I still remember it. And that's the first thing I learned. And it seems like that can fill that gap that wrestling gives the American fighters. Judo should fill that gap in like Australia and the other parts of the world.
It's a great base.
You are right in what you're saying, that it's great to teach kids, because you've got 3 elements of most fights. You've got, your hand-to-head puncher kicking, your transition throws into ground, and then your ground.
Yeah.
You're not going to teach a kid to punch someone in the face. Like, it's just not
Exactly.
to do. And same wise, starting off with a jiu-jitsu or a ground fighting background, that's fantastic too, great fun. But learning how to fall, learning how to protect yourself is applicable to every sport. Like, especially with AFL, we've talked before about how at the moment you're seeing a lot of people dive into a tackle with their head.
Yeah.
Someone's going to get paralysed with that shit.
Absolutely.
Unless you learn to protect your body. And a lot of these guys who are coming up
Correct
from
technique.
from under 18s straight into AFL level, they've never played against grown men and learned to just bring their shoulders up, protect their neck, bring their whole body into a tight ball, and take the hit. Which is what judo and a lot of other martial arts that include throws and impact will actually teach you. Otherwise, you end up broken.
And that's a brilliant segue into your other position now with Zenith Sports and Get Your Tackle On.
Yep.
So how did this come about as well?
So
I think that's a better name than Get Your Tackle Out.
absolutely. So we
We'll just leave it there with Mal. We're about halfway through the chat, so we're about to get into his other life as head of Zenith Sports and starting a Get Your Tackle On.
Or tuck your tackle in, as the case may be.
James Kelly would have been wise to wear that one. So you'll hear the last 30 seconds you just heard will be the first 30 seconds of the next episode. So join us back for the next episode in a sec.